Hi, I'm Doug, your tech support representative here at Atlantic British. In this video we're going to discuss and actually show you how to install a thermostat in a 4.4 LR3 or Sport, non-supercharged Sport from 2006 to 2009. Now what happens is now as they're getting older, we're finding that some vehicles, and people talk about they don't get enough heat in the car, which is usually a sluggish thermostat, or the vehicle will throw a fault code like a P0128 and saying that it's not reaching its parameters or it's not reaching its full temperature. And that usually is also an indication of thermostat. What we also want to do is show you some options that you have, being more than likely the vehicle is going to be like in the 100,000 mile mark or more. So there are other things you want to check while you have the system open to take care of, so you don't have to do it twice down the line. And one of them obviously is going to be just the thermostat, which you can get. And you'll notice that this comes in 4 distinct pieces, that it's sort of like a build your own, and we're going to show you how to do that, and when it's part of the installation on it, and then plus your O-ring for your outer housing. Now the thing you might want to consider is that if you're going to take the thermostat out, and some people prefer to go the whole route, this is the housing that the thermostat sits in. This runs across the front of the engine. You have 4 bolts here holding the upper section down. These 2 attached to the front of the intake manifold, and then of course here is your actual housing for the thermostat. Now what happens is these have a tendency, as they get older, they'll crack, they split. It's a known issue. It does show up quite a bit on these, so you may want to take care of this instead of just the thermostat. That'll take care of 2 issues. Along with, you also get a temperature sensor with it. Next step up would be if you have over 100,000 miles on a vehicle, you want to take a good look at the hoses. Now this is the kit that you would use on the LR3. This would be the Cool Kit 100, and this will give you your heater hoses and your coolant feed hoses that go to the throttle body, as well as your radiator hoses. If you want more detail on this kit, we do have a video that you can refer to that will give you not only more detail, shows you what's included with the kit, and just basic ideas to where they're all located. So for now, what we're going to do is we're going to show you replacement of the thermostat. So before we begin, I'm going to just give you a quick rundown on the tools that you're going to find necessary to change this over. Obviously, it's going to be a 1/4-inch drive ratchet. You need a 6mm, and this is so that you can take the engine cover off. The 3 screws for the thermostat housing. This is a T25 Torx driver with on a 1/4-inch drive, and looks to be about a 4-inch extension. This is a specialty pair of pliers, but they are available in just about any in fact, you can even find them in Harbor Freight and other tool suppliers. And you can see basically you got a 3/4-inch opening around this, and this makes it a little bit easier for depressing the new thermostat when you go to put it in place. And the water pumps are great for taking the clamps off, as well as removing the old thermostat from the housing and helping to install the new one. So this one is a must. So that's what you're going to need. It's not a lot. It's a relatively easy job. So let's show you how to do it. Alright, so first we're going to start with just removing the engine cover. We take our little 6mm socket and 1/4 drive ratchet, and we spin off all 4 bolts, and we got to take the oil filler cap out as well, and this will lift right up and out. Alright, so with the cover off, you'll see that you now have the thermostat right there in front of you. This hose will be sitting right about here. You can just take this and tuck this up out of the way. Usually they're flexible enough. Now before you go any further, keep in mind that you have coolant in here. So the first thing I've done is I've put a bucket down underneath to catch the coolant that's going to come down out of this. Secondly, you want to do this when the engine is cold for 2 reasons. One, obviously you don't want to be taking this apart with water temperature at 200 degrees. Secondly, you also don't want this thing to blow out under pressure, because when the system is hot, it's also pressurized, anywhere from 17 to 20 pounds of pressure, which means you take a line off and it's just going to blow the coolant all over. So cold is the best way to go. And what we're going to do is we're going to back off this clamp, and this clamp. We're going to take these hoses off. This way when we go to change and assemble the thermostat, that it's a lot easier with the upper housing up and out of the way, as opposed to trying to do it with it in the car. Okay, so took our 3 hoses off, and we're going to take our Torx drive. Now these are metal screws that actually screw into a plastic housing, so keep that in mind. You want to take a good look after you get the cover off just to see if there's any damaged threads or whatnot. They usually come out pretty easy. There we go. And this will lift right off. So you can see what I was talking about, that this is why the thermostat's built in 4 pieces. This plate right here needs to be compressed and turned 90 degrees to release the thermostat. Plus you also have the ring. You're going to want to replace that O-ring, which is down here in the lower section of the housing. And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's right there in front of you. And all we're going to do is we'll show you how to install that thermostat, reassemble this, top it off with coolant, and you're pretty much ready to go. Alright, so took a pair of pliers, turn that plate 90 degrees, and you'll see the sequence where you have spring, plate, cover, and this is what normally goes bad. And as you can see, even when I lifted it up, how that's been peeled back, and this is normally what you run into. So it doesn't allow the thermostat to fully seat, and by that it ends up not allowing the engine to get up to full operating temperature. You still have flow getting through there even though it's supposed to stop it. So that's the common issue with those. So what we'll do then is pull the new one out, kind of get the parts assembled in line where it should be. Now you notice how the spring is smaller on the bottom, so that's what we're going to do with the replacement, the larger end going up inside. This stem will run inside that bushing down in the bottom. Now, something I should have mentioned is sometimes you'll pull these apart and this stem will actually stick or jam down inside there. So you'll pull it out and you'll see this metal shaft and you wonder how to install it. Just grab it with a pair of pliers and work it right out. You might want to get a little piece of sandpaper or something in there just to clear up whatever little bit of corrosion is built up in there. So we're going to throw that in there, seat that, and you set your spring in place. We don't want that, that's the old one. Set that in place. And make sure that that small spring seats on the top of the brass crown right there as part of the thermostat. And now comes the fun part, is trying to compress all this. Alright, so what we've got is this pair of pliers with the rounded end, and you can get these from any supplier. This will sit down underneath and you're going to push directly on that plate. And this is how you're able to turn it in and out. And then once you get the edge in place and it holds it in, then you just take your water pumps and you're going to squeeze them from the side just to seat those 2 ears so that they're square, and you know it's not going to come out of there. So now our thermostat's in place. So make sure we change our O-ring so we don't end up with any leaks. This is the one that we showed you in the lower housing. And now you can just either grab with your fingers or a small pair of pliers and just grab that ring and pull that right out. Alright, so I pulled the old one out, and I just wanted to mention while we're looking at this, you see these little tabs on the O-ring itself. And the reason for that is so that it creates a little bit of a snug fit, and then this way the O-ring will stay in place when you go to put the thermostat back on. So you just want to make sure it's fully seated all the way around. Looks good, surface is relatively clean, and we're just going to put our thermostat housing back on. So we've snugged in the 3 bolts, and there's really no set torque on these, so you're just going to turn them in until you can feel them seat, and then just give them a little twick just to the right, just to snug them in good and tight. You don't have to go, you don't want to go crazy, you don't want to over torque it. Like I said, it's a steel screw, but it's in a plastic housing, which means you over torque it, you can strip the threads out. So just run them in until they stop, and then just give them a little nudge, and then you'll be good. So we'll put the lower hose on first and make sure that we're fully seated up in there. And then this way we'll run that clamp up without the upper hose being in the way. So this is the last of the three. We put all three hoses on. We've got our clamps in place. Make sure the clamp is sitting where it was previous to disassembly, and you'll see the marks on the hoses. And then don't forget to pull over your little hose that you stretched out of the way earlier. So this way everything is where it's supposed to be. Clamps are on tight. So all we're going to do is we'll start it up. We'll let it run for a minute. And what that'll do is bleed the air through, and then we'll let it sit, top off the coolant level in the tank, and essentially you're done. We'll put the cover back on, and you're done. So when you're ready to, or when you have to, replace the thermostat in your LR3 or your Sport with a 4.4, this would be 2006 to 2009, just give a call to any of our knowledgeable salesmen at 1-800-533-2210, and thanks for watching.